Hi everybody, welcome to Sandra's Art Studio. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot. No, I'm not at Sandra's Art Studio anymore. I am Sandy Treasures Inc. That's right, I basically changed the name, or I didn't change the name because Sandra's Art Studio still exists if you want to go check it out. But it was not doing well at all. I had already like 8 years of doing Sandra's Art Studio, and I decided to, abandon Sandra's Art Studio and start a new one. This one is called Sandy Treasures Inc. And this is an art channel, and I get to share with you guys what I'm up to. And this particular painting is an environmental awareness type of painting. The mermaid is actually rescuing the turtle from what? Well, you're going to see that at the very end. And I had to split this into 2 videos because it's kind of long, and usually people don't like to sit around for more than 15 minutes, I reckon. So I made this into a 12-minute video, and I hope you guys enjoy it very much. So I start my paintings with basing in the colors, and as you can see, everything looks very uneven, very blotchy, and that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. And I let my oil paintings get a little dry. Not dry, but after a little while, the paints are easier to move around. They get a little tacky. And what I do is, it's a mix of oil paint and linseed oil. So this mixture here allows me to move the paint around until I'm happy with it. And if it was just a little bit too dry and tacky, then what happens is you end up like removing some of the paint instead of moving it around. And if it's too wet, then you're blending in the paints, too much to where you don't have the difference of tones. So everything becomes like the same color, and that's not what you want. So that's why I put in the base, and then I come back and I play with it again. And that's why I don't like to jump around into different areas. But in this case, because the technique of painting with this combination, oil paints and linseed oil, it just works better when I let it sit there for like a good 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So while I'm letting it sit in whatever area that I just got done painting, I move on to another area and I continue to paint instead of, waiting for a certain section to dry, right? And the way I'm doing this painting, it requires a lot of layers. So that's another aspect of this, that, there's a time that it actually looks pretty shitty. And I say everything has a shitty stage, and you are pretty much watching the shitty stage of this painting. But as I keep on going and I keep refining the blends and the colors and everything, it starts to come together. So I think that a lot of people that, let's say, are not happy with how their paints or their paintings turn out, a lot of times it's just a matter of finishing or just staying with the subject for a little bit longer. A lot of times I see a painting that it doesn't look all that polished or all that refined, or it doesn't look very nice, and a lot of times I think, this is a painting that the person just needed to stay on it just for a little bit longer, and then they would have gotten the results they wanted. So at this point with this painting, I am done with like the 4th session. I know it doesn't look like it because you're seeing everything sped up, but I'm done with the 4th session. And at this point, I'm giving it a little break, and I come back like after 2 days of letting it dry, and I continue to paint. And what's nice about this combination of linseed oil and oil paints is that it does dry, not 100%, not all the way through, but in a couple of days, it's dry enough to where I can go ahead and put a second layer onto that, and it's not going to mess up my first layer. Let's say if I make a mistake, then I erase it with, I use mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits to sometimes thin my paints or to clean my brushes, but also to, let's say, erase a section that I did not like the way it turned out. And you can, save a lot of time and effort. Let's say if you have already a base to, let's say, the skin tones, right? And then I come back and I want to start putting shades and hues of reds or whatever. And if I didn't like the way it looks, then I can just go ahead and remove it with my brush, just barely wet with mineral spirits. And I can just remove that extra layer that I added after I had let my paints dry, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. And that comes in very handy, let's say, with areas that are a little bit more delicate, like the face. Sometimes I like to play around with the tones, and I don't always get it right on the first shot. So sometimes being able to erase that layer that I added after the paints had dried, it's kind of handy. It's a nice little technique, and it also boosts my confidence as far as how bad can it be? it's only paint. If I mess up, I can erase it. I can, go back a little bit by just erasing that layer of paint, which is really nice. And by the way, if you're wondering, this is painted on a skim board. It's a repurposed skim board. And what I did at the very beginning was sand down the skim board and cover it with gesso and then let that dry. Gesso is kind of like an acrylic primer for painters. And I let that dry only like a day, and then I start moving on to doing my oil paintings. And getting back onto what is actually happening right now, I love doing scales. And of course, that also has a shitty stage, like right now you're seeing it. But the more you stay with the subject and the more you blend it, it just starts to come out really nicely. It starts to look really nice and polished. And of course, you can be a little bit less defined with your scales. Me in particular, I like a little bit of definition, and pretty much all my paintings, at least that's the stage that I'm going through right now. And I will make sure that I put on the description most of the materials that I use currently. And just to disclose this, of course, the goal is to get the affiliate marketing going with Amazon. Right now, I don't have it, but I do leave the links. But eventually, I will get that compensation from, or commission, I should call it, from Amazon. So I just want to put that out there. And of course, if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them in the description. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And if you also have any suggestions of what to paint next, I'm open to suggestions. It may happen. I may be up to it. I like challenges. So let's see, as long as it's up my alley and it's not like so different from mermaids and turtles and manatees. That's kind of like the subject I like right now. And I think that we need to bring awareness to this subject, right? Because we have a lot of plastics in our water, we have a lot of pollution, and there's other issues that we can just go on and on and on. But I think that bringing a little bit of awareness makes it to where everybody can do their part and we can all have a happy world. And if you guys are interested in hearing what is it that got me started on painting environmental awareness type of art, let me know in the comments. I will be more than happy to share the story. I think it's a fun story, and hopefully on the next the sequence to this painting, I'll be able to talk about the story if I get enough comments saying that they do want to hear the story. Another thing I want to mention is that I am working on getting my website together. Right now it's not up and running, but this is a solo band. So I paint, I do my edits, and sometimes these edits can take a day or two because it's not like I'm all that great at doing edits, but it's part of being a YouTuber, at least in the category of you're just a one-man band, so you get to do everything yourself, and that includes my website. And back to the painting, notice that I'm pretty much almost done with doing the scales on her tail, and it's looking a lot better. And I'm getting close to that point where I can do some highlights, and that's when things kind of like really start to shine. I think that the highlights are kind of like putting the Christmas lights on a tree. And as you're seeing this job being completed and you're seeing the up close, how things don't look like, when I say it looks refined, it's not 100% refined. It's got a lot of choppiness to it, and that's okay, and you may be in that stage in your life where you're thinking, you want to tackle doing something like this or your own style, whatever it is, but you want to tackle it and it doesn't look like it's that hard, what's to it? Well, you should do it. You're not going to know until you actually do it. So go for it. Give it a try. Give it a go. There's a lot of benefits to painting, to getting your mind engaged into a project like this that takes many hours of focus and staying with the project. And for me, my favorite thing is to go either completely silent, quiet, when I'm doing a project like this, or to listen to some classical music in the background, nice and soft and not too loud. It actually keeps me very steady and very focused, and I like what it does for me. So maybe you ought to try something like that too when you're painting. I'm not saying listen to classical music necessarily, but whatever favorite tunes you have, that helps because it puts you in the mood to where you want to engage into something that takes you a while. So it's a lot of fun. Give it a try. And you see how I'm doing an extra coat of white. It's a very translucent white over the turtle's fin and face. And I like what it does when it's overlapping that yellow ochre. So it's not completely covering it. It's not like I did a mistake it's like it's a highlight to the subject. And so what if I have to redo the spots of the turtle? It's okay, I'm having fun anyway. But I like that some of the yellow tones have stayed underneath that white that I applied on the face of the turtle and the fin. And these spots, the more you look, the more you notice how everything is kind of like multicolored. You can really go deep into looking for more colors into, let's say, a simple brown. You'll find reds and greens and yellows. But, okay, I'm not going to go that crazy, but I am going to include some of those tones that I'm seeing because it makes the whole subject, it makes it a lot more interesting to look at, and it gives a lot more texture, right? And as I'm moving on to the end of the video, I hope you guys gave me a like, subscribe, and hit the notifications because that's how we move in the algorithms of YouTube. And I really want to build this community of artists, and hopefully you guys will join me for the next video. And actually, you have to join me for the next video because the next part 2 of this one is going to be a lot more interesting. It has certain touches that is going to absolutely melt your heart. So come back and watch part 2, which is only going to be just a few days from whenever I post this video. I should be able to publish the part 2 video, and that's the grand finale of it.